I want to welcome you, Joan. Joan Berry is our guest today on Marsy's Law interview series, Why We Do What We Do. As people know who have tuned into Why We Do What We Do in the past, these stories and interviews we have are inspirational stories of people who are champions and advocates, both locally and nationally, for survivors and victims' rights all across the country. And typically and tragically, the people who are the most effective in this space don't just sign up for this. It's really brought upon them. And someone like Joan has turned a horrific and the worst experience that anyone could ever have in their life into a positive experience for other people, and to try to see if they could affect change, and to be a force for good and a force for positivity and a force for change in the criminal justice system, and specifically in the victims' rights space. So Joan, thank you so much for all that you do. And we're going to get into that right now. And like Dr. Nicholas, the tragedy that fell upon your family was what inspired you to become a force for change. And so before we get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about your daughter, Johnia Berry. Could you please tell us a little bit about Johnia and her beautiful life?
Absolutely. Johnia was, she was an amazing young lady. She was very ambitious. She loved everyone. She graduated from college in 3.5 years with a double major. She went to law school in Michigan, but she did not like law school. Her love was for children. So that's how she ended up back here in Knoxville, Tennessee, to pursue her doctorate in child psychology. So Johnia was very ambitious. If she wanted something, she worked hard for it, and she accomplished it. I'm very proud of her.
Now, I want to now direct your attention to what we had discussed, was what turned out to be the most horrific experience and the worst day of your life. December 6th of 2004. That day obviously changed your life forever, and it really redirected your purpose, as you and I have talked about, and what you're doing now. You got a phone call at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Could you tell us what happened?
Yes, we were living in Atlanta at that time, and Johnia was here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, my phone rang, and someone asked to speak to Mike Berry, and Johnia's dad. And when you get a call at that hour of the morning, you're very alarmed that there must be something terribly wrong. So Mike got on the phone, and the gentleman from UT Hospital told him they had a young lady there, and she had been a victim of a break-in, and that they thought she was our daughter and needed someone to come and identify her.
And
so,
at the time, you had two sons that were a little bit closer to her, and you asked them to try to get there as fast as possible?
Correct. Our youngest son lives in Knoxville, and we have an older son that lives in Virginia, and they're closer than we are. Of course, it took 4 hours for us to get here from Atlanta, and I'll never forget that night. It rained every mile. It was just was the longest ride of my life, and it was just like the heavens had opened and all the angels was crying. It was awful. I prayed all the way that it wouldn't be Johnia, but of course, when the boys got to UT first, and they did identify the body, that it was Johnia. Someone had broken into her apartment in the early hours of the morning, and said he was looking for a set of car keys so he could steal a car, have a ride. And he went into Johnia's bedroom at the end of the hall. Johnia, she never liked sleeping with her door completely closed. She always liked it to be open a little. And he went into her bedroom, and of course she woke up, and he told her to chill out. She asked him, "Who are you? What do you want? You know, what are you doing here?" And he said he told her to chill out. But if you wake up to a strange man in your bedroom at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's kind of hard to chill out, you know? You're frightened. And he said when she was screamed and was fighting to get out, the fight was on, and he stabbed her over 25 times. And, you know, she did not know him. He was just a thief out in the middle of the night, breaking into cars in her apartment complex. You know, you think your child is in bed safe at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, you just can't believe that something like this is going to happen in your own home. So that was where our life took a complete change. Our life has never been the same.
And you then started to meet with, after Johnia's funeral on December 9th, you then met with law enforcement for the first time of many, many, many hundreds of times over several years. And little did you know at that moment how long and grueling this process would be for you and your family. You were telling me that you had lunch with the detectives, and you found out that Tennessee at that time did not take DNA samples from violent felons upon arrest. And so I think, like you and I discussed, you realized that this was probably going to be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more difficult because of that and a lot of other factors. And then the long and grueling investigation went on. It began and went on for years. While the investigation was going on, you decided to take action to see if you could actually get a DNA law passed in Tennessee. Tell us about how you did that and what the results of that were.
Well, you know, I think when something like this happens to you, you just kind of have taken for granted all of your life that law enforcement and the laws are what they need to be. And then you find out that, wow, there's so much liking here. We were so happy that, well, we weren't happy, but we were glad that there was DNA left at the scene. And then it was very disturbing to find out they didn't take DNA. So when the detectives told us that they did have a third DNA, and but they said Tennessee didn't take DNA, of course. So that's when, I said, well, that really needs to be changed. So I got in contact with the legislators, some of our local legislators, and asked them if we could get this DNA thing going in Tennessee. It needed to be. Tennessee was the 8th state that had passed it, and we had some wonderful, wonderful legislators that put it into action, but it took 2 years. It took 2 years to get it passed. It had quite a big financial note, and it seems to be the important thing is the money to everyone. Of course, I mean that's just the way of life. But what's more important than making Tennessee a safer place? That's what we want our tax money spent on, and we just need better laws for victims. We need better laws for law enforcement to work with. And I think you don't realize how it is. So it's up to us to make sure that law enforcement has these laws that they need. They have the tools that they need to work with. So it took 2 years to get the DNA law passed in Tennessee. And it is called the Johnia Berry Act, 2007.
And it was the first DNA law, a real landmark DNA law in Tennessee.
Yes.
And one of the best in the country. And Georgia now has passed a DNA law as well. It's not upon arrest, it's upon conviction. But that's also named after Johnia Berry as well.
It is. It's called the Johnia Berry Act, and that was passed in 2010. Uh, so, like I said, Tennessee was the seventh state. I believe now there's 39 states that have passed DNA, and we still have a ways to go. But I've traveled with many family members that have lost a loved one to a violent crime, and by working together, we've been able to accomplish. We've moved forward quite a bit.
And working together is really what you did with law enforcement during a 2 year and 10 month long investigation into catching the killer. And working together, not just with law enforcement, but you worked together with the community while you were doing this to try to get the DNA legislation passed. You were also helping law enforcement, but also going out into the community. You had billboards, you had rewards, you were going to apartment complexes and putting out flyers. Could you tell us a little bit about what you did, the extra efforts that you put in, because you weren't going to stop?
I was so worried and concerned that Johnia's case would turn into a cold case. I thought it was very important to keep it out there, let everyone know that there was still a murderer walking around on our streets. And so we had a reward. We had billboards. We kept it in the media. Every time I would come to Knoxville to put out flyers, I would go to apartment complexes, parking lots, put them flyers on parked cars. We had the information on the back of tractor and trailer trucks that went up and down the interstate from Kentucky down to Georgia, up in Virginia. I just had to do it. I couldn't be still. I had to do everything that I could think of to make sure that Johnia's case was not going to be forgotten and turn into a cold case. That was first thing on my mind from morning till night. That consumed my whole life for 2 years and 10 months.
I remember you told me you did a lot of praying, and you said it was the first thing on my mind when I opened my eyes in the morning and when I close them at night, until I close them at night. And then after this incredible investigation and the work that you did, after 2 years and 10 months, finally they arrested Taylor Olson. He was picked up on a probation violation.
Right.
And he then submitted to a DNA test. And this was after the DNA law that you worked so hard to get passed had been passed. And he then submitted to a DNA test voluntarily, I believe it, after his probation violation. And there was a match. You had said that there was DNA at the scene from 3 sources, that it was that Johnia and then also her friend Jason, and then the third one, and then the third one turned out to be a match with Taylor Olson.
Yes, that's correct.
And after he was picked up, he said that he did it, but he said that it was an accident, even though that Johnia was stabbed over 20 times.
Correct. He did. He said it was an accident. He didn't mean to do it. So an accident, you stab somebody 25 times and that's an accident. No, he had no business coming into her apartment. She didn't know him,
Well,
unbelievable.
The other thing that we talk about is for victims and survivors and their families is the whole concept of healing and closure. And so sometimes that comes at the arrest, and sometimes that comes after conviction at trial. The arrest was made, but you never got that conviction because the trial never happened. And tell us about that.
We went to court one time. I was in the courtroom with Taylor Olson. Yes, we just, I was so worried that, we wouldn't be able to get a guilty conviction, but I think that God answered my prayers. On He was arrested in April, and he was arrested in September, and I'm sorry, and in April he Taylor committed suicide in the Knox County Jail. He hung himself in his jail cell. So a lot of people say, well, you didn't get justice, but yes, I feel like we did get justice. The DNA was 96.8 billion to 1 a match. That's incredible. There was also a partial fingerprint on the knife, and that was Taylor's print also. So in my heart, we did get justice, and I feel like we were blessed that we don't have to keep going back through the justice system the way that a lot of family members do, of victims. They have to go to parole hearings, and it's just, they're constantly fighting for justice to be served in the fullest. And the way the justice system works now, in Tennessee, you might pull a third of your time if you're convicted, because you earn good credits, and you earn time off your sentence, and they're released early. And I have been to so many parole hearings and testified for people and seen how it just rips their heart out. It's not closure, there's no such thing as closure. There might be there's closure to one part of something, but there's never closure to losing a victim, a family member to violent crime. So,
and you almost even after Taylor Olson killed himself, and that chapter closed in your life, you didn't really even allow it to be closure, just for yourself, because you thought of other people, and you thought of other victims, and you thought of other families, and you didn't want this to happen to them. So now, some 16 years after that, you're still fighting. And right after that, when you could have closed things down and tried to move on just by yourself and for your family, you, like you said, have appeared at numerous parole hearings to help victims' families. And you've joined the board of this, what's called this, is it the Surviving Parents Coalition?
yes.
And you started an organization called Hope for Victims, where you would meet with legislators and go to National Crime Victims' Rights Week.
We do.
And one of the things that you told me about that you do with Hope for Victims is you have many candlelight vigils and sessions. And then you also have an event, Victims Christmas to Remember. Can you describe that with the Christmas trees at the courthouses?
Well, Christmas is a hard time of the year if you've lost a loved one and they're not with you anymore. And we feel like there's not a lot that you can do. So we have a huge Christmas tree at the courthouse, and we do this in several counties here in Tennessee. And family members come on a certain time, and we have a little event, and they come and they bring ornaments. Sometimes they hand make them, and has their names on them, and each person comes up and says the name of their loved one, and they hang the ornament on the tree, and that stays there for the entire month of December. And it's very special. We all know and feel the same pain, and we feel like we're sharing with each other, and just doing something special at Christmas for our loved one. Lots of people don't like to think about losing a loved one to a violent crime, or they don't want to know about it. They don't want to know about the way things are if you lose a loved one. They just it's not a happy, of course it's not a happy thought. It's something people don't like to think about. But when you find out that this could happen to anyone at any time, we just need to make the community aware that these things happen, and by working together we can make a difference. So it's very meaningful for the Christmas to remember.
And and you've also taken that to a whole nother level, because in Johnia's memory and in Johnia's name, for many years you've had a Christmas toy drive. Can you tell us how that started and who it benefits?
Well, Johnia, of course, her passion was children. She loved children. That's why she, left law school and came back to work with children. So on the night Johnia was murdered, she had been out shopping and had bought Christmas presents for children, and she had them all lined up and ready to wrap. And the sheriff's department gave us those toys, and we were able to deliver them to the children. But every year at Christmas, we do a Johnia Berry toy drive, and this will be the 20th year. No, sorry, this will be the 19th year that we have done it. And those toys, we work with schools and organizations. So we collect the toys, and we give them to the organizations, and they deliver them to the children. So it's grown tremendously, and I think that this makes Johnia smile in heaven. I think she's looking down, smiling, and helping, knowing to help the children. And it also helps us, keeps me busy, so I don't have time to. I'm sad, and of course I miss her, but I think staying busy has been the key for me. I'm very passionate about these things, and I'm very passionate about victims' rights. So doing things like this has been good for me also.
And this year there's a little bit of a twist to the toy drive.
There is.
Tell us about that. It's going to be actually in 5 days.
Yes.
In July 25th this year. And tell us a little bit about what's going to happen on July 25th this year.
Well, we're having a Christmas in July, so it's called it's for the Johnia Berry Toy Drive, and we have one whole section of the street blocked off, and we'll be able to come donate a toy, and we'll just it's just so many people have just come on board with this and have been a help and made it such a success. So this is the first time we've done it in July, so it's kind of exciting to see all the Christmas lights and know that it's a good cause, that Johnia's helping children again.
And it is such a tribute to her and to you, and it's such a blessing to see such heartache and heartbreak turn into such joy that you do every single year for all the children and all the smiles and that you've generated over the years, and also that all the warmth you've brought to victims' families and all the support, because you know what that's like. As you and I discussed, no one thinks it's going to happen to them, and there's no blueprint for how you're supposed to react, and you don't know who to go to for support. And when there's a Joan Berry out there who says, I've been through this and you're going to get through it, to sit there next to somebody at a parole hearing, and to help them navigate the criminal justice system that is trying to speak a foreign language, really, to so many people. It's really incredible what you've done. You like to stay busy, you said. From all the conversations you and I have had, I don't think you have any problem staying busy with all the things that you do. And I want to thank you on behalf of Marsy's Law for all that you've done for Marsy's Law. Marsy's Law now in Tennessee is very close to passage, thanks to you, Joan, and the legislators that you've worked with. And we are so grateful for the work that you did to help Marsy's Law pass the House. And now our next step is to try to get Marsy's Law passed in the Senate. That's the next step to getting it for the people of Tennessee. So could you tell us a little bit about what you've done to help Marsy's Law and what you're going to continue to do and why you think it's important?
Well, you know, we, when legislation starts, when it rolls around again in January, that's when it starts here. We go to Nashville and we visit with our legislators, and we let them know that we need these laws, that we need more rights for victims. And that's what we'll be doing again. We'll be going down there and talking with the senators. And I really believe in my heart that it's going to pass this time. I really feel good about it. So, you know, we need victims, families need to be informed and kept up with what's going on. Sometimes you meet family members that they can't cope. They don't know what to do. They need someone to talk to. They just need someone to talk to. And having Marsy's Law is going to be a tremendous step in the right direction for family members. So we'll be visiting our senators, and there's some of them that is wonderful. There's some wonderful people there, and sometimes it takes them a little while to get on board, but I truly believe that it'll pass the Senate, and that's what we're also going to have. We have support group meetings here in Knoxville once a month. I hope for victims. So we will be talking about Marsy's Law in those meetings and asking everyone to help support it. I think by it takes, you know, together that we can make a difference. If we all just make a little phone call or send a little email, makes a big difference.
Well, we've seen that in your experience, and we are so grateful to have you on our team because we know you get results, and your hard work is really unparalleled, and we're so grateful for all that you're doing and all the great legislators are doing on behalf of the people of Tennessee. And I look forward to working with you as the legislation keeps moving and working together with you with Marsy's Law. And we just thank you so much, not just on your work with Marsy's Law, but for your perseverance and your incredible advocacy on behalf of victims and survivors everywhere. Thank you so much, Joan.
Thank you. And I thank you and everyone for making Marsy's Law, putting it out there, and I think it's wonderful, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done and everything that Marsy's family has done to help victims.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for taking the time and joining us today, Joan.
Thank you, Peter. Have a good
All right,
day.
we'll be in touch. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.